This is a Microsoft Business Intelligence demo. What we want to highlight here in this Business Intelligence demo is a scenario around performance management and also a scenario around reporting and analysis. In this demo, we are AdventureWorks. We are a company that manufactures and sells bikes and bike accessories. We'll walk through this scenario from two personas. One is the VP of Sales, Jacob Sanjay, and the second will be Kim Rawls, the analyst. In this first scenario, Jacob Sanjay logs into his corporate intranet site and he sees some information being hosted inside of Office SharePoint Server 2007 for just that, the corporate intranet site. Now what Jacob does is he's the VP of Sales, so he's probably going to want to look at some critical information around sales. And so what he has built is he has built a sales scorecard to measure three very important corporate initiatives around sales. One being sales overview, a second being orders, and a third being financial metrics. Now, AdventureWorks has decided that what they want to do is they want to align the corporation around this strategy, and therefore they're utilizing a Microsoft technology, Business Scorecard Manager 2005, to align action to strategy. In this example, what I'm showing here on the screen is an executive scorecard where I've got certain pieces of information on the left that are very pertinent to this initiative, such as sales amount. Now, on the left, I've got my Business Scorecard Manager view showing through Office SharePoint Server, but on the right, what I've done is I've tied individual report views to this scorecard. So, for example, if I want to look at something under sales overview like average sales amount, I can very quickly see how the company is doing for this particular piece of information around average sales amount by showing a report view on the right. Now what you're seeing on the right is actually a thin version of a pivot table. So for example, if I've got average sales amount, I could expand something like bikes, and I could see very quickly at the category level of bikes what my average sales amount is, as well as for the subcategories, mountain bikes, road bikes, touring bikes. Additionally, if I wanted to look at sales amount where I started previously at $109 million, I've got a pivot chart showing me how I'm doing across a time, as well as a pivot table, all tied to the same key performance indicator. Now, what is important to highlight is that these key performance indicators are actually pulling information from a key performance indicator engine that sits inside of SQL Server 2005 analysis services. And so while I am slicing and dicing and getting different views of this information, it's all coming from the same centralized, centrally managed source, which is Analysis Services 2005. In addition to seeing information around sales, I might want to look at information around orders. So for example, I can see from my scorecard view that my order count is sitting at an actual number of 31,455. Now when I click on order count, what I get on the right is an Office report view showing me information about order counts as well as additional information around gross margin. Now what I'm showing on the right is actually a report view showing a ProClarity book inside of Office SharePoint Server. Now in addition to having the scorecard view on the left, I can now look at gross margin by, in this example, all products, and I can click down from accessories to see how it breaks down to categories below accessories, completely thin inside of the browser. Now what I quite possibly want to do is actually launch the full version of ProClarity to go do more analysis inside of a much richer environment. So here I have the same view that I was just looking at in pure HTML now opened up in a richer client where I can now do deeper analysis. So inside of this decomposition tree, I can expand components, I can expand bikes, or I might, for example, want to not break it down by category into subcategory, but actually drill down through a different hierarchy. For this example, I might want to do it by manufacturer. So now I can see by components where they're actually coming from. I can also do a similar kind of analysis for bikes very quickly inside of the browser, very quickly inside of a very rich application, which is ProClarity. So now what I've highlighted for you is that in my performance management scenario, what I can do is I can monitor how the corporation is moving against very important strategic initiatives. At the same time, I can do analysis on individual KPIs that I may have some concern about. The last example I showed was for order count. Now, some additional functionality we also have inside of Business Scorecard Manager is the ability to add annotations. So for example, looking again at order count, I can see that my actual is 31,455. Now, after doing some additional analysis, I may want to add a comment. I may, for example, find out that the reason the order count is low is because of seasonality influences in the Western region that I may have come up with that information through my analysis. I can very quickly add that annotation or that comment here so that other people, when they come in to view this scorecard through their portal or through their environment, they can see that additional information that I have been able to uncover through doing additional analysis. Now, some of that additional analysis, as I talked about, was ProClarity views. I also showed to you Excel pivot table views being shown to you thin in the browser, such as this one around average unit price. But what I can see at the bottom of my scorecard is I've got a KPI around gross profit, which is showing me a target that is not satisfactory for what I'm expecting, hence why I'm getting a red view here. So for example, when I click on gross profit, because I may want to now go do some additional analysis, I'm bringing up what you've seen already, which essentially is a thin version of an Excel pivot table. But in this example, I don't have enough information. I've got row labels giving me categories, I've got information about sales amount, and I've got a gross profit margin percentage. And I know that gross profit is something that I want to go look at. Now, what I might want to do is do some additional analysis than what is available to me here in the browser. So part of Office SharePoint Server 2007 is the tight integration with Excel and Excel services. And what I'm showing you is in Excel services, I want to now open that pivot table inside of the rich client, Excel 2007. So what I've done here is I have opened that same view inside of Excel, but now I'm no longer in the browser. I'm simply inside of Excel 2007. But I'm not just inside of Excel 2007. I'm also inside of Excel 2007 connected to an Analysis Services 2005 UDM, or Unified Dimensional Model, which again is where all these KPIs, all this information is being sourced from. And what I see in my pivot table is just the same thing I saw before, my row labels, my sales amount, my gross profit margins. But I also have this rich metadata on the right that is being pulled directly from Analysis Services, where I have additional types of information, both measures, i.e. things that have numbers, as well as additional facts like geography, like customers. Now these are all represented to me in business terms. So I've got sales amount, profit margin in the actual pivot table. I may want to bring in something like discount percentage from resellers. I simply need to click on that piece of information and it automatically adds it to my pivot table. And so now I have the ability to go and expand individual categories like bikes, where I can now see mountain bikes, road bikes, tour bikes. I can expand mountain bikes if I want to drill down. And for all of these individual components, I can see the sales amount, the gross profit margin, and now discount percentage, that additional piece of information I was looking for. What's also important to highlight is just a tight fidelity between Excel and Analysis Services. What I'm simply doing here is hovering over one of the members in that hierarchy, in this example, Mountain 100 Silver 44, a particular kind of mountain bike, and I can see all of the attributes that are being stored inside of Analysis Services. This is simply just highlighting the fidelity we have between Excel and Analysis Services. Now, when I expand some of these rows, what you see is quite a bit of numerical information. Another highlight of functionality added to Excel is information, or the ability to add conditional formatting or add some visualization capabilities. For example, I may want to provide some conditional formatting around accessories for discount percentage. And because again, of this tight fidelity between Excel and analysis services, I understand that this is actually data that's hierarchical, and it's asking me, do I want to compare using conditional formatting numbers at this level of the hierarchy, which is exactly what I want to do, and you quickly see that I'm comparing against the category. So now I can see very quickly that components is actually scoring quite well with regards to discount percentage, where areas like accessories and clothing are a little bit higher. So if I now go back to my scorecard, I now have some additional information around discount percentages that I may want to come in and add as an annotation to this scorecard view. And so I simply could come here and add it just like you saw information before. So that's a quick overview of performance management, where I'm doing monitoring and some analysis around some strategic corporate initiatives. What I also have the ability to do with Microsoft Business Intelligence is more around just some simple reporting and analysis, where there might not be a corporate initiative, or there may be, but I simply want to run off and do some reports, do some analysis, where I can get some additional insight about how my corporation is performing. For the second scenario, I'm going to be performing the role of an analyst. In this example, I'm Kim Rawls, and Kim Rawls logs into her corporate portal, again, utilizing Office SharePoint Server 2007, and she's got a similar look to what Jacob Sanjay, the VP of Sales, saw. She has her scorecard, again, because that's a corporate initiative, but she might not want to look at these particular KPIs. She might just want to do some analysis around sales, possibly some information around reseller sales. The first thing she might want to do is just run some simple reports. She's going to want to look at how particular bikes or particular categories or subcategories of their AdventureWorks products are selling. She's got some standardized reports that are already built for her. However, she may want to not look at bikes, but possibly look at clothing. She'll then look at a different subcategory. She wants to look at gloves, jerseys, and shorts, and she'll keep the current date range, and she simply is running a report that is going off and pulling data, quite possibly from multiple data sources. The top part of this report might be pulling data from Oracle databases. The bottom part of this report might be pulling information from SQL Server. She might have multiple pieces of data brought back and presented in different ways, for example, in a table on the left, but more of a graphic on the right. But the key thing here is that these are the kinds of reports that we want to run regularly. We want to pull data back from multiple data sources. And in this example, what Kim has done is she's just executed these reports on the server. In addition to executing them on the server, she may choose to have these set up to be delivered through a subscription. Maybe she wants to see the clothing report every Monday morning at 8 a.m. And for that kind of scenario, she would utilize SQL Server 2005 reporting services, just as I'm utilizing them here. In addition to seeing a product line sales report, she might want to look at something with more detail, maybe a sales order report. In this example, I'm looking at a sales order report that is giving me line item information from the order system for this particular sales order. She could very easily change the sales order, choose View Report, and now I can see an additional sales order, again, pulling back very detailed level information from a relational database. Now, Kim gets a lot of reports that she needs to see, but she's also looking for some additional information around resellers that there is no current report for her. So what she's going to do now is she's going to need to create her own ad hoc report. And to do that, she would utilize part of the SQL Server reporting services product set, a product called Report Builder. So when she clicks on Report Builder, what happens is she's presented with a business model of the underlying data source. Now, Kim is an analyst. She may not understand how to write SQL statements. She may not understand connection strings, but Microsoft Business Intelligence, through reporting services, provides her the ability to build her own report looking at business terms. So in this example, I'm going to build an ad hoc report over a relational data source where I've got reseller information. And what I want to do is I want to build a reseller report. I can give it a title. I can call it Reseller Report. I can also go and grab information about resellers. For example, I want to look at reseller name. I simply drag and drop it onto the field. I also want to get their phone number. Part of the reason behind doing this report is I may actually want to call some of these companies. In addition to bringing over reseller name and their phone numbers, maybe I want to do some grouping by geography. In this example, I want to do a grouping by their country. And so it brings over a term I actually want to rename to shorten it to just country. And I don't want to see all resellers. I only want to see resellers for certain countries. So I'm going to actually put a filter on this report. And when I put a filter on this report, I'm again given the same metadata model, which has business translations, to use in my filtering. I'm going to filter on that country again. I'm going to bring the name over, but I'm not going to look at it as an equal or just one particular country. I actually want to choose from the drop-down in a list and use multi-value select. And in this example, I'm going to choose the United States and the United Kingdom. And then I'll simply just choose OK for my filter, and I now have applied that filter to this report. I'll go and execute this report. Now what's happening behind the scenes when I execute this report, it is dynamically creating a SQL statement and going out to the relational database and bringing me back an ad hoc listing of all of my resellers grouped by country. I could come back and add additional information to this report. Maybe I want to look at something like order number. I simply can again come grab that, drag order number onto this page, execute report again, and now I'm going to get that same list, but in addition to just seeing the country name, the name of the reseller, and the phone number, I can see the actual sales order they have utilized with me. So this is a good example of a report builder report, an ad hoc report. But what if I want to do some additional analysis? I actually have a unified dimensional model, an OLAP data source, where I'm storing some rich information. What I now want to do is show the new functionality that's in Excel 2007 to do some ad hoc analysis against that unified dimensional model. Now, one of the problems we've had in previous worlds has been the fact that I need to know where the cube is, I need to know the connection string, I need to know information about security, so that I can actually connect to that multidimensional data source. A lot of work went into the 2007 Office system between Analysis Services, Excel 2007, and Office SharePoint Server to make it much easier to find those rich analytic data sources and provide the ability for people to do their own analysis. So what I can do now is I can actually click to existing connections and I can browse out on the network. I'm actually looking out on Office SharePoint Server at the Office Data Connection Library where I can see information about these analytic data sources. In this example, I'm just going to connect to a unified dimensional model which has information about AdventureWorks sales information. Now I've got a lot of information in this unified dimensional model, and I'm actually going to want to filter it down on just reseller sales. And so I can see very easily all of the metadata that is in the Analysis Services engine, such as discount amount, discount percentage. I'm going to build a fairly simple report inside of Excel where I want to look at reseller sales amount, I want to look at reseller gross profit margin, and I'm going to want to group this by something. So I don't just want to see all up for all AdventureWorks products, but I actually want to see it by product or by geography or some dimension that makes sense from a business perspective. In this example, I'm going to choose geography. And you can see very quickly that I can get rich information about the 6 geographies in which AdventureWorks operates. And I can see the reseller sales amount, the gross profit margin. I can come up and change the actual term in the pivot table. It's not going to say reseller gross profit margin, but I'll actually change that to just GPM for short, because that's how my company may utilize it internally. In addition to what I showed you before, where I can add some conditional formatting, I can actually add conditional formatting for gross profit margin, not using data bars like I used before, but using color scales. And here, where I want high to be good, I'll utilize a 3-color scale where high is green. And very quickly, I can now see the gross profit margin for these countries, and I can see very quickly that Australia is not doing very well. With regards to reseller sales amount, I may want to add some conditional formatting. So here I'm adding conditional formatting at the country level, but I may also want to do it at a level below that. And I actually want to do it so that no matter what country I expand, I see the same level of visualization. So now, for example, if I go and expand France, you can see that I can compare individual areas inside of France with individual areas inside of other countries as well. Now, I don't just have the ability to add visualizations, I also have the ability to add key performance indicators directly into this pivot table. Again, because we have a key performance indicator engine inside of Analysis Services, I can expose those KPIs to anything that can consume them. In addition to showing KPIs and measures, I may want to do some filtering. Now, Analysis Services 2005 has the ability to have different hierarchies for things like date. I have a calendar hierarchy, I have a fiscal hierarchy. I'm going to want to build a filter on fiscal year, and I simply can drag it down to the report filter area, and I come out to the pivot table, and I want to look at some information, not the entire information. So in this example, I will look at just fiscal years 2004 and 2005. And so again, very quickly, I've added a filter to this pivot table. I now have some rich information that I may want to now share with my organization. This is where tight integration between Excel and Office SharePoint Server really start to highlight themselves. I now want to share this. In the previous world, what I would do is I would save this to my desk, I would then open email, and I would send this Excel file around in an email to my group. What I want to do now is actually publish this Excel workbook out to a part of Office SharePoint Server called Excel Services. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to Reports Library, and I'm going to give this report a name. I'm going to call this my Reseller Report. Now, when I'm saving it to my Reports Library, I'm actually saving it utilizing Excel Services. So I have some options here. Now, the reason I want to show you the options here is to highlight that I can choose to show the entire workbook when it's executed from the browser. I can choose to show individual sheets. How I'm going to do it in this example is I'm going to save individual components. In this example, I'm going to save the pivot tables. Now, what I'm doing when I'm clicking Save is it's actually going to ask me what kind of document type is this, because it's expecting certain document types for this reports library. I'm going to choose it's an Excel report. So I'm saving it out to Reports Library, and what I have done is I've saved it out to the Reports Library on Office SharePoint Server. So if I'm Kim and I come back to my portal where I started this component where I do reporting and analysis, I want to highlight where Reports Library is. So if I go look at my Reports Library, you're going to see a listing of reports that I have saved out to this Reports Library. I've got Excel workbooks, I've got reporting services reports such as product catalog, and there's my new Excel workbook titled Reseller. Now, when I click on this, what it's going to do now is it's going to open, utilizing Excel services, this Excel workbook in pure HTML. So here I am viewing that same pivot table with the same functionality. I can expand Canada. I can come up here and filter. Right now I'm filtering on just 2004 and 2005. I may want to choose to select all, and I will refresh this in the browser, but I still have my visualizations and I'm still pulling my information from the Analysis Services engine. So if I come back to Reports Library, I want to talk for a moment about what I see here. As I mentioned before, I see my Excel workbooks. I have the ability to open them in the pure HTML version. I also can choose to download them as snapshots in Excel 2007, or I could, in fact, if I had the permissions, choose to edit that entire Excel document inside of the desktop client Excel 2007. Besides Excel workbooks and reporting services reports, I also have these objects called dashboards. When I click on my dashboard, which is reseller sales, you will see that I've already built a dashboard for my work group or my department to measure certain things that we think are important. These may not be corporate strategies. These may be particular initiatives around reseller sales, but the key component to highlight is that I'm just utilizing the functionality I've shown you here today, just using it in a dashboard inside of Office SharePoint Server. For example, I've got my Excel Web Access web part highlighting that pivot table that is showing me internet sales and internet gross profit margin for resellers of AdventureWorks products. I've also got this new object on the right called a KPI, or Key Performance Indicator list, which is pulling its KPIs from that same Analysis Services 2005 Unified Dimensional Model, which is the same place I was pulling KPIs from for Business Scorecard Manager, the same place I was pulling KPIs from for Excel 2007, and also some of the reporting services reports that I showed to you earlier. An additional piece of information here on this dashboard page is this fiscal year. This essentially is a fiscal year filter that is applying that filter, or what I select in that filter, to the actual web parts, be it Key Performance Indicators or Excel Web Access. So if I navigate back to where Kim Rawls started this scenario, which is her sales portal, you can see that I had the ability from inside of SharePoint to kick off an analysis and reporting scenario where I was utilizing Excel, utilizing reporting services, utilizing Report Builder, and providing a nice container inside of off a SharePoint server to deploy that information out to the end world. So let's just reiterate what you saw here today. I started in a performance management scenario where I really focused on doing monitoring around corporate initiatives and taking some additional analysis to uncover anomalies or drill down into anomalies I saw in my performance management scenario. Additionally, I did reporting and analysis. I did ad hoc reporting. I did ad hoc analysis. All of this is built on top of the Microsoft Business Intelligence product offering. Microsoft Business Intelligence strives to provide a complete and integrated scenario for all of your needs, taking advantage of Microsoft Office technologies for widespread delivery, but tightly coupled with the enterprise scale capabilities of SQL Server 2005, all with completely new economics. You can find out more about the Microsoft Business Intelligence product offering by going to our website at www.microsoft.com/BI.